Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Creating Wealth. Marjorie Roman here, and we have our mentor, Robert Allen. Thank you for
Turn
coming
on
today.
your creative brain because you're going to hear some techniques you've never heard of before. Most realtors have never heard these things, so open your mind to some new possibilities.
That's right. And today we're going to kind of transport you to your childhood because we're going to be talking about balloons. But balloon mortgages, though. So how does a balloon mortgage work, though?
A balloon means...
Yeah, like a balloon down payment. How does that work?
A balloon means eventually, let's give an example. So we have a $250,000 property, and suppose you bought it for nothing down. And the probability that's really low, but the seller only is willing to accept your nothing down deal because you're going to make monthly payments to this seller on a $250,000 mortgage over a period of, let's say, 30 years. But they don't want to wait 30 years for the money because they know what's happening to money. They know that money is leaking in value through inflation. They don't want to receive a fixed payment for 30 years. They know by the time they get to the 30th year that the money that they're receiving today, 30 years from now, will be worth half or less, maybe a third of much of what it's worth today. So they don't want to wait 30 years to get their money. So let's solve that problem. They don't have to wait 30 years.
Ooh.
They only have to wait 10 years, 7 years, 12 years. See, creative financing means you get to decide the terms. You get to decide. So let's suppose it's 10 years, and you say, 10 years from now, this mortgage at $250 it is today, it will be paid down to, say, $200,000. So you'll have received some what's the opposite to interest? Interest and principal. Duh. You'll have received some principal. The loan will have been paid down to $200 by then. At that time, I will guarantee to refinance the property and pay off your $200,000 remaining amount. And it becomes a balloon. Now, why do they use the word balloon? It's kind of like, rather than stretching out over long periods of time, little tiny balloons, they say they're going to balloon all what's due into a shorter time frame, and therefore all of it needs to be paid at one time. That's why it's called a balloon. It also is called a balloon because the balloon pops.
Oh, yeah.
And that means you owe $200,000 10 years from now.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what if the seller comes back and says, no, I'm not gonna do that. I'm not gonna tie my money up for 30 years with a balloon in 10. No, I'm not gonna do that. I would only do 7. Ooh, would you do 7?
Doable?
Yeah, would you do 7? Maybe for you, you'd have to think about it. Let's see, do I have time to fix it up and to increase the rents and split it off and do all those creative things I wanted to do? Do you think I have time to increase it in value enough so I could refinance it? Because remember, right now it's 100% financed with 100% loan. With a seller financed 100% loan, no bank involved, no bank requirements for down payments. As the seller walks away with nothing, no, except a monthly payment, a promise for a monthly payment over 30 years. But so maybe, would you take a 7-year balloon? Does that give you enough time? Is that safe enough for you? Yeah, I think so. So in my famous challenge where they sent me to San Francisco and took away my wallet, I bought 7 properties. Mm-hmm. Most of them were, 2 of them were, I guess all of them were nothing down, but 2 of them were ultimate paper outs, meaning the seller accepted from me, somebody they never met, a 100% mortgage on their free and clear property where they did not own a bank. It was all me making monthly payments to them at 100% loan, and I offered them a 3-year balloon. I said, 3 years from now, you get out. It's a balloon. Or was it
So
5 years? Maybe it was 5. There's a balloon in there somewhere. It's been a while. So the point is, the balloon was like an incentive. Any balloon that is paid within 5 years looks like cash. If it's any shorter term balloon, like a year, it really looks like cash. If it's a short-term chunk of money that you've agreed to pay, because maybe your circumstances, you've got an insurance policy that's coming due, but it's in 6 months from now, and you don't have it right now, but you will. Maybe your inheritance kicks in 3 years from now. And you know that there's money there, but it's been locked up, so your parents wouldn't let you access it because they know you'd blow it, right? So, but 3 years from now, the balloon does come due. You can show them the documents to prove that you literally have that. And therefore, this is just another concession. It's another way to think about it. Balloons, I don't like them unless they're necessary. And in my case, when I was in San Francisco trying to buy a property in 72 hours,
you needed it.
It was necessary. So the first property I bought, the seller did a wraparound. I gave him a second mortgage, a third mortgage, and a fourth mortgage. Have you ever heard of a fourth mortgage before?
I've only heard of 2 mortgages as of now, but
four
a
mortgages.
fourth one sounds kind of dangerous at that point.
He was a creative investor too.
Awesome.
He said, "This is the way you'll buy it from me." And he says, I will require no money down, but the second mortgage has a balloon in 3 years, 10% interest, high interest rate, 10%.
Really high.
Second mortgage, balloon in 3 years. Fourth mortgage, balloon in 3 years. Well, was I going to hang around for 3 years? I wasn't going to own that property. I was going to immediately sell it. So I immediately resold it as soon as I bought it, so I could prove that you could buy a property with nothing down. Two young gentlemen living in San Francisco, they bought it from me for nothing down. They assumed my mortgages, my balloons. They paid them when they came due. I have no idea whether they actually ever did get paid because they assumed them. The seller never came back to me, so they must have been paid. So what I'm trying to say is sometimes a little unusual way of thinking can inspire a seller to say yes. Because in the ordinary retail real estate world, they wouldn't say yes to this. But since this is a more creative way of doing it, they sometimes say yes. Doesn't work every time. It's one of the tools in my toolbox. In this case, I myself personally have used balloons many times, and they're fun. And then every once in a while, you'll have a balloon that'll blow up in your face.
Oh, no.
Yeah. That's when the market dips. And when you bought it at the high peak and you had a balloon due when the market was down at the bottom, and then your balloon comes due.
And you're like, oh, no.
That's why
I'm paying too much
exactly.
now.
You got to give yourself some time unless you're willing to take that risk.
Mm-hmm.
Because eventually the property increases in value. So when you refinance it, the bank is okay with that.
Okay.
You've owned it for, like, say, 3 years. The property's increased. Their equity's increased. Your collateral has increased. Your proof of you making monthly payments is a track record that you've proved. So the bank a lot of times doesn't require the same kinds of requirements they do for a first-time buyer. For an owner, they look at you differently, and therefore it's easier to refinance than it is, generally speaking, than it is to buy on a first-time basis.
That's right. And I feel like also when you refinance it after a certain amount of time, you could also do like a cash out refi at that point.
Yeah, exactly.
And get that money and end up paying for your balloon that is due like soon.
And whatever money you pull out from a refi is tax-free.
That's right.
You don't have to pay taxes on it until you sell it.
Mm-hmm.
So what if you don't sell it? What if you eventually hold on to it and you make the monthly payments until the mortgages are zero, and then it's a cash cow? So, yeah, the real estate game in a creative way, it just got so many fun ways of doing it. And most people are afraid to get involved in real estate because they don't understand this stuff. And they're afraid of the mortgage and the debt. You know, think of the word mortgage. Mort in French means death. M-O-R-T, to die. So a mortgage is an obligation to death. You know, and most people don't, they can't even imagine being in debt
Until you
for
die.
30 years. This is scary, right? And then what's really crazy is they realize that the home that they're in has gone up in value over the last 12 years at least. And they realize that they're sitting in an asset that's increasing in value and it's being protected from inflation, but they only buy one. How dumb is that? They should be buying 2, 3, 4, 5, 10.
20.
20, exactly. Only 7.6%. Or was it 6.7%? One of those two numbers. About 7% of all the marketplace in America today, only 7% own rental real estate. 65% own a house, but only 7%. So like 1/10 of them are smart enough to get 2 or 3 or 4 or 5.
Or even to rent the one that they're living in already.
Exactly. Rather than taking and selling the one they're living in and taking all the money and moving into another property, why don't they just keep the one and rent it out?
That's
and
right.
creatively find a way to buy the second one with little or no money down. And therefore they have 2. Okay, well, a lot of people got burned in 2008 and they haven't forgotten it. You know, they say as a cat who steps on a hot tin stove never steps on a stove again, hot or cold. And this is what happens to investors who got burned. And they go, I'm never going to do that again. Never going to buy a property like that again. Never going to buy 10 or 3 or 20 properties like that again. Well, because they're afraid of getting burned again. Well, yeah, that could happen. But hey, if it happens, more than likely it will happen during a what? A buyer's market. So what should you be doing if you just lost your 10 houses? You know, of course, if you buy them my way, you'll never lose them. But if you're buying as a speculative idiot, like most people were in 2008, if that was the way you were, okay, you lost them all. Go buy them all back at 1/10 the price.
Right.
Buy them back.
There's so many ways that you can still get your assets back, even if you are going through a financial crisis. And I feel like with all the many techniques that you're teaching us, even if you were to be in bankruptcy, well, you may not have the best credit. You may not have the best amount of money laying around. But there are so many other things that you can do to actually purchase a home. And you're teaching us all of those techniques.
Yeah, can you buy a property while you're in bankruptcy? Well, that's a legal question. You talk to your attorney about it. But just because you're going in bankruptcy doesn't mean you can't buy real estate. Now,
That's right.
I've shared with you before, I've been very transparent that there was a bankruptcy that happened in my life many decades ago, but it was hurt. It hurt. It hurt because I wanted to buy real estate and it forced me to be a nothing down investor. And by the way, I just created that strategy.
It forced you to use your own
if I'm
methods,
going to
so-
lose all my money and start from scratch, at least I'll use nothing down techniques.
Right.
So if you're going through bankruptcy, it's okay. You'll be fine. Just get through the bankruptcy, get it all cleaned off, and then you start all over again with terrible credit. And it's going to take 7 to 10 years to clean your credit up. So what?
That's okay.
You still
do
can
it.
go buy property with little or nothing down. One of my favorite students, he is a multi-millionaire now and declared bankruptcy right after the big, huge, greatest recession of all time. And he lost all his properties, lost them all, had to declare bankruptcy. Do you know the next property he bought, having just discharged his bankruptcy? This is like a short time after the bankruptcy discharged all his debts and left him with the worst credit rating you can have.
Oh my gosh.
Bought a $2 million commercial building
Oh, wow.
from a seller who carried all the financing. And he had to use techniques to make sure to get into it. He explained to the seller, I just declared bankruptcy. Why would a seller sell to somebody who had just declared bankruptcy?
I feel like in that case, it was because he built trust.
Totally.
And that's
he did
exactly
it face
what
to
he
face
teaches.
with that seller. He he talked with the seller. He realized the seller has issues he's trying to solve. He'd been trying to sell this building for a while. Mm-hmm. And so my student said, okay, I'll pay you your price, which you haven't been able to get. I'll pay your price. It's too high, but I need terms. Mm-hmm. And the terms are, I'm bankrupt, but I can make these monthly payments. You have tenants in there that can make sure that you get all your money. You'll be safe. You'll be fine. The down payment that I'm raising, and it wasn't a totally nothing down deal. He did raise some money from some other partners, but he had to be the guy on the line. Mm-hmm. And his attorney called the seller and said, did you know that the guy trying to buy this has just declared bankruptcy?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. Yes, I know, because he told me.
That's right.
Yeah, he was transparent with me. And so just telling you this story, I know some of you are embarrassed about your financial circumstances. Get over it. There's a seller out there who'll take you just as you are, warts and all.
That's right.
Because they got a property they don't want. And if you negotiate with them in a trusting way, they'll sell to you. They'll trust you. It's rare, but how many do you need to buy this year?
You just need
one. Two. You can do this.
Yeah.
If you really want to get good at this, buy 5. If you want to get like, whoa, big time, go buy 10. You can count your fingers on that. Go do that. And you can do that with no credit, no cash, no credit, no nothing, no collateral, no cash flow, no job, no nothing. I proved that by when I went to the St. Louis, and this is the book that I wrote about. It's called The Challenge. We don't offer it here, but sometimes scrolling around, you'll find me offering this book for free. It's called The Challenge. Me going to an unemployment line, selecting people, showing them how they could start with nothing, no job, no nothing, 0. 3 people. 3 people did it. You can do it. If they can do this, you can do this. If you can get a copy of The Challenge, get a copy of it. You can read the story of how I did it. It's really pretty dramatic. So what I'm trying to say is, if you understand the power of finding a highly motivated seller, I call that person a don't wanter, combined with the powerful system that I'm teaching here about techniques, you can do this. You can.
Thank you so much again, Bob. And thank you to our audience. You can definitely do it. You couldn't have said it better. So go out there and start using all of these techniques, because even a balloon can help you get the house that you need. Thank you so much. And we're going to see you in the next episode.